Hello guys, welcome to my YouTube channel. I am Mampi, your favorite life sciences teacher. Welcome to all things life sciences, or rather biology. So this year I'll be doing like physical interactions or visual interactions instead of doing voiceovers. And without further ado, let's get to today's lesson. So today we are going to learn about the nucleic acids. But I want you to take note of the learning outcomes, or rather the learning objectives. At the end of the lesson, you should be able to know what nucleic acids are. You should also know about the discovery of DNA, who discovered it, and also which year. You should also know about the nucleotides, nitrogenous bases, and you should be able to tabulate the differences between DNA and also RNA. So, during all our lessons, I want you to understand something before we get into the lesson. So whenever we're doing these lessons, I want you to understand the reason why we are studying certain topic like nucleic acid. What are nucleic acids? How important are they? And where do we find them? So these are the things that I want you to understand if we are talking about. So I need you to understand the importance of whatever we'll be learning about. If it's DNA, I need you to know what it is. Why is it important and where do we find it? Now we are going to talk about nucleic acids. So nucleic acids are the large molecules that are found naturally. So what it means is that we don't have to create nucleic acids on our own. We don't have a laboratory that would say they are creating DNA or RNA. So naturally in our bodies we do have DNA, and plants also have DNA. So that is something that we were born with. It is found naturally. Now the question is, what is the importance of this nucleic acid? So the importance is actually the function. They are responsible for protein synthesis, and they also carry genetic information. When we talk about protein synthesis, we are actually talking about the formation of proteins. So in order for our cells to be functioning properly, they need proteins such as enzymes, which are responsible for the functioning of the cells, and that means they are also responsible for growth. And then when we talk about genetic material, we are actually referring to genetic information. So genetic information is actually the information that you get from your parents, your grandparents, and all that. It's basically the information that is passed from generations to generations. In order for you to look like your grandparents, in order for you to look like your parents, it's because of the genetic material. It can not only be about the looks, but also about how you behave. It also takes a role, and it plays an important role. And then we have two types of nucleic acids, which are the DNA and also the RNA. So the question is, what is DNA? DNA is a deoxyribonucleic acid that is responsible for protein synthesis and also genetic material carrier. And then we also have the RNA, which is the ribonucleic acids. We are going to focus more on the DNA first because it carries a lot of marks and it also has a lot of content. So now we know we know the full name of DNA, and we also know the meaning of RNA. So now I want you to understand something when it comes to differentiating. I want you to underline this word. I want you to underline these two words because deoxyribo is going to be deoxyribose sugar that is found in DNA, and then the ribo is going to be the ribose sugar that is found in RNA. And then these two nucleic acids, the DNA and the RNA, they are not made of one nucleotide, but they are made of a lot of smaller units, which are called the nucleotides. So the nucleotides are basically the building blocks of RNA and DNA. If a question comes and says, write down, especially the biological term, if a question comes and say, write down the building blocks of, or what are the building blocks of DNA or nucleic acids, you are going to say nucleotides. And nucleotides is composed of three things, which is a phosphate group, a sugar, and also a nitrogenous base. A phosphate group does not change. Sugar changes. If it's DNA, it's going to be deoxyribose, but if it's RNA, it's going to be ribose sugar. And also a nitrogenous base might change, might not change. If it's RNA, then only nitrogenous base that is going to change is uracil. And then if it's DNA, the only nitrogenous base that is going to change is a thymine. Now, nucleotides are the building blocks of DNA and RNA. We spoke about that. And then nucleotides consist of a phosphate group, a sugar, and a nitrogenous base. So now you have an idea of what DNA looks like and what RNA is composed of. You just have a smaller idea, but now we need to figure out how it came about. So back then, I don't know when, but back then we had scientists who decided that they're going to make a discovery of a DNA. By the studies, we can see that no one has ever seen DNA in their entire life. We just have a theory of what DNA looks like, or it might look like. So we had two scientists who decided to make a discovery and the theory of DNA. And the first one is James Watson together with Francis Crick. This was done in the year 1953. However, these were not the only two scientists who decided to pursue the studying of DNA. They had a lot of scientists who assisted them. However, in our case, we're going to focus on these two, James Watson and also Francis Crick. If they ask you two scientists who discovered DNA, then you know it's James and also Francis. They did that in the year 1953. And now we know who discovered DNA. We know what DNA might look like. We know the building blocks of DNA and RNA. But where do we actually find DNA? Do we find it in the eyes? Do we find it on the air? Do we find it on plants? Where do we find DNA? So we have three types of DNA. We have mitochondrial DNA, nuclear DNA, and then we also have chloroplastic DNA. So chloroplastic DNA is found in plants. We are not really going to focus on that. This one is found in plants, and this one we can find it in our bodies and all that. So mitochondrial DNA, nuclear DNA, and chloroplastic DNA. So chloroplastic is found in plants. These two we are going to talk about. Mitochondrial DNA focuses on the proteins which are found in the mitochondria, and then the nuclear DNA is the one that is responsible for our cells, for the growth of our cells and the functioning of our cells. But do not forget, they carry what? Genetic code. They carry genetic material. If a DNA from my mother is for coding for eye color, it's going to match with the gene from my father's side to code for eye color. So both of them are contributing equally. And then we also have what we call nitrogenous bases. Nitrogenous bases is one of the building blocks of DNA. So DNA, or rather RNA. Nitrogenous bases, we have purines, and then we also have pyrimidines. Purines are the ones that have two carbon nitrogen rings on them, and then pyrimidines, they have one carbon nitrogen ring only. So a purine always pairs with a pyrimidine, and we call that complementary bases. Because a purine can only pair with a certain pyrimidine, and a certain pyrimidine can only pair with a certain purine. That is why we call them complementary bases. They basically complement each other. So in DNA, the purines that we have as adenine and also guanine. And then these are also what we find in RNA. And then we also have pyrimidines, which is cytosine, thymine, or uracil. If it's DNA, the pyrimidine that we are going to have is thymine, and then if it's RNA, the pyrimidine that we are going to have is actually a uracil. Purine always pairs with pyrimidines, and we call them complementary bases. Now we're going to look at how the complementary bases pair, and we're also going to compare the differences between RNA and DNA. So with the complementary bases, in DNA, we have adenine pairing with thymine, guanine pairing with cytosine. And this four bases, they are paired with hydrogen bonds. In adenine and in thymine, we have 2 hydrogen bonds. In guanine and cytosine, we have 3 hydrogen bonds. In RNA, we don't have thymine, however, we have uracil. So adenine in RNA, it's always paired with uracil through 2 hydrogen bonds, and guanine is always paired with cytosine through 3 hydrogen bonds. So the structure that you see, it's a double-stranded structure of a DNA. I'll also insert a picture that shows how a coiled structure, a double and coiled stranded DNA looks like. We spoke about the nucleotide. In this case, the nucleotides are the phosphate group, the sugar, and the nitrogenous group, which is thymine. The nitrogenous base is adenine. So this is a nucleotide, and this whole thing, it makes up DNA. So it's a long structure that we cannot draw and understand. Now I want us to look into the differences between DNA and also RNA, and then we can also see the structure of RNA. So when it comes to the differences, DNA is double helix or double-stranded. However, RNA is single-stranded. DNA has a deoxyribose sugar. RNA has ribose sugar. DNA has thymine, whereas RNA has uracil. So these are the differences that you need to know. And of course, you're going to get 1 mark for table. If they say tabulate, make sure that you tabulate so that you can get an extra mark. Now, let's look at the structure of RNA. As we have stated, it has uracil and it also is single-stranded. So as we have stated, RNA has uracil and then it's also single-stranded. This is the structure of RNA. RNA is not double helix, it's single-stranded. So we are going to have our phosphate group, we are going to have our sugar, we are also going to have a nitrogenous base. Instead of thymine, we are going to have uracil. But guanine we can have, cytosine we can have, adenine we can have. The only difference is this uracil, it's replacing thymine. If they show you a structure to indicate if whether it's an RNA or DNA, you can tell through the nitrogenous base, U or T. U is uracil, T is thymine. If it has T, it means it's DNA. If it has U, it means it's RNA. This is the basic structure of a nucleotide. The phosphate group, the sugar, and the nitrogenous base. The nitrogenous base can be uracil, guanine, cytosine, thymine, or adenine. The sugar, it depends on the nucleic acid you're talking about. If it's DNA, it's going to be a deoxyribose sugar. However, if it's RNA, it's going to be a ribose sugar. And the phosphate never changes. The phosphate remains the same. So as we are coming to the end of the lesson, I hope now you can also see the learning objectives and understand it. You understand what a nucleic acid is. You know who discovered DNA. You know the nucleotides. You know nitrogenous bases, and then you also know the complementary bases. The next topic is going to be DNA replication, which also plays an important role because it has as a types of questions. I hope you guys enjoyed today's lesson. If you did, please subscribe, like, share, and comment, and give me some encouragement so that I can post as often as I can. Thank you.